a short time ago, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak an international public health emergency.
Across the country, at least 21 million kids now home from school.
We had to develop a story that exemplified the importance of personal connection while under the restrictions of social distancing.
Students who took part in our campaign rated themselves as 19% higher when asked about the level of understanding they have about racism on our campus.
More likely to engage in social causes to promote inclusivity on our campus.
The words that people get labeled with upon first impression are most likely based upon physical attributes.
Our campaign, Connect to Protect, sought to combat microaggressions that could lead to targeted violence by creating an environment of inclusivity. We accomplished this through social media initiatives, trivia nights, and inclusivity challenges. Overall, we garnered 180,000 media impressions and increased participants' awareness about targeted violence in our community.
Our campaign, Connect to Protect, is an initiative aimed at reducing targeted hate and school-based violence through inclusion. It encourages students to embrace positive labels by fostering a connected community. We aimed to educate students on topics related to racism, targeted violence, and inclusion. We chose to address the issue of racism, as based on our preliminary research, the majority of Hopkins students reported that racism is the most prevalent issue on our campus.
We chose the silent majority as our target audience. This is because our research showed that the majority of students already had a set opposition against targeted violence. However, very few of them were involved in prevention strategies. 72% of the students surveyed said that they had a role to play against targeted violence. But 78% of these students were not currently involved with fighting for a cause related to targeted violence. We believed that we could shift their mindset and encourage them to take action against targeted violence. We chose the uncommitted population as our secondary target market because we believe that with a successful campaign, we could encourage them to change their mindset. We then conducted further research on our audience to produce the most successful campaign possible.
We conducted our preliminary research through 3 tactics: a pre-campaign survey, in-depth interviews, and a focus group. Our pre-campaign survey results demonstrated that over 80% of the students rated themselves as 7 or higher on feeling included, with 1 being not very included and 10 being very included. However, Black or African American students had a much lower average rating of 6.7. Additionally, 55% of the students indicated that they fear hate-based violence. In the in-depth interviews, students believed that the diversity of the Johns Hopkins campus makes us especially susceptible to school shootings because a lot of school violence has hate-based motives against minorities. Many students also indicated that they currently do not participate in activism because they believe these events have low success rates. Finally, during the focus group, the majority agreed that there are few incidences of targeted violence at Johns Hopkins, but there is a large presence of microaggressions, especially relating to racism. Therefore, it became clear to us that our campaign would combat microaggressions relating to racism. We used the results of our preliminary research and applied them to all of our tactics for the campaign, including our social media, the advertising messaging, and the campaign strategy and implementation events.
We created a 360 comprehensive campaign, ranging from social media challenges to video initiatives to events, in order to address the issue of microaggressions. The insight that drove our campaign was this: allowing small acts of microaggressions here and there can create a snowball effect, leading to greater acts of mass-targeted violence. A prominent source of microaggressions is stereotypes that are formed upon first impression, often relating to physical attributes. Therefore, we can drastically mitigate rates of microaggression, slurs, and hateful words by fostering an environment of connectivity. To illustrate this idea clearly, we developed the Labels campaign.
The Labels initiative was primarily illustrated through our video advertisement. When creating the video, we faced a unique challenge. We had to develop a story that exemplified the importance of personal connection while under the restrictions of social distancing. However, with the insight that coronavirus has surfaced and normalized stereotypes, we were able to communicate the idea that the words that people get labeled with upon first impression are most likely based upon physical attributes and can then lead to dangerous stereotypes that can initiate targeted violence. So as you can see, we were cleverly able to communicate the importance of connecting to prevent against targeted violence, all while remaining sensitive to the world's most current issue at the time of coronavirus. To bring this message full circle, we had students on Instagram post a story with a word they think represents something positive about themselves that people can't usually see. This was the Positive Labels Initiative. So, for example, we had students say, "I am a good listener," "I am a good friend," etc., which allowed students to show their peers how they view themselves beyond physical appearance. The Connect Protect website was a home base for all of the different moving pieces of our campaign. From the About Us page to the checklists and blog posts to information about virtual events, everything we created for this campaign lived on this site. Our landing page highlights the most prominent aspects of our branding and mission for the website and campaign. Our website was developed via Wix.com and connected to Google Analytics so we could track our progress throughout the campaign. Our website resulted in a total of 1,200 impressions. We found this statistic significant considering all of the content that was put on our site was mainly delivered to our audience via other platforms like social media due to the coronavirus.
As mentioned, the website featured 11 content pieces. This included 6 blog posts related to different aspects of targeted violence, 3 informative checklists about our campaign, and 2 BuzzFeed-style quizzes, with results that show everyone that they have the ability to be inclusive.
After hearing the announcement that our campaign would be moving to a virtual setting, we had to come up with ideas for events that could still keep our audience engaged. We spoke with our friend Stephen Walsh, a Hopkins alum who runs his own trivia sessions via Zoom, and realized that we could engage our classmates and teach about our campaign through the fun trivia events as well. During implementation period, we held trivia sessions each week on the Kahoot platform, in which students could join and compete for fun prizes like Amazon gift cards and Apple AirPods. The trivia content included questions specific to our campaign, race history at our university, as well as some fun pop culture questions to lighten the mood, as many of our questions contained heavy content.
Promotion of trivia occurred mainly through Facebook, where the events were hosted and shared. Each student in the class also changed their cover photo to a Connect to Protect shield to generate awareness for the campaign. Facebook is extremely popular at Hopkins, which explains the 58,000 impressions achieved here. Another major social media platform on our campus is Instagram. This was used to inform and interact with our audience, mainly through our theme of labels. Examples of this include the Labels interview series on our feed, where we dug deeper into the labels featured on our video. In the end, these efforts resulted in 54,000 impressions. Lastly, for social media, we hosted a Snapchat contest, where participants could keep a streak with our campaign by sending in completion of daily inclusivity challenges. For example, they could answer the question, "How are you going to make Hopkins a more inclusive campus?" This was a more intimate way to connect with our audience and earned us 500 impressions. Finally, the website contained a press tab where we could post updates on any press hits that our campaign received. Our 3 press releases and press kit landed articles in local, national, and international outlets, such as Kahoot.com and the Johns Hopkins Twitter page. Press earned the campaign a total of 65,000 impressions.
Our post-research results demonstrated a change among students who participated in our events. Students who took part in our campaign through tactics such as trivia rated themselves as 19% higher when asked about the level of understanding they have about racism on our campus compared to when previously surveyed. Students who engaged with Connect to Protect had a 5% increase in feeling as if they could prevent targeted violence themselves, and a 4% increase in a likelihood to stand up to injustices. This shows that our campaign made a measurable impact on our audience and was successful.
For the campaign, we allocated 59% of the budget to the Campaign Strategy and Implementation Department, 35% to the PR and Social Media Department, and 6% to the Advertising Department. Based on calculations of the budget spent, donations, impressions, and other factors, we determined that the impressions per student is 27.08.
The main challenge we faced was keeping our audience engaged while being miles away from them. Based on previous adventure campaigns, more traction and a larger audience would have been gained by being on campus. But most of all, being on campus encourages more in-person dialogue and discussion, leading people to ask more questions and wanting to know more about targeted violence. We had to make sure our tactics would still encourage this level of discussion. Because of this, we decided to make our social media very interactive and not simply use it to promote our campaign. We also hosted trivia where we encouraged people to use the chat function to stay engaged and have these conversations and move them into everyday life after the event was over.
By implementing Connect to Protect campus ambassadors, the labels and inclusion-themed social media challenges of the campaign can be further shared across social networks. Connect to Protect ambassadors would encourage those in their campus communities to take part in the challenges previously instituted in the Johns Hopkins community. They would be a part of a larger Connect to Protect network where they could share with other campuses how they are promoting inclusivity to fight against targeted violence in their school community. Additionally, the trivia events could be brought to surrounding universities such as Loyola University and the University of Maryland, and eventually reach universities in cities and states where targeted violence is very prevalent and more education and inclusivity is needed. These universities could collectively compete in virtual trivia events against each other, which would emphasize university-wide connection and collaboration while educating these communities. And finally, a Connect to Protect charter could be established on campus in coordination with the Office of Multicultural Affairs. This charter would focus on the inclusion of minority groups and the mitigation of targeted violence and acts of microaggressions toward underrepresented individuals. This charter would implement the tactics and messaging of our campaign while connecting with minority individuals to garner a greater reach and personalization.
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our presentation.